real. So we are live here with Dave and Alexei. Dave, Zed. Is that your real last name, or is that?
No.
Okay, I was going to say that somebody actually asked me that, and
I wish it was.
I was going to say that was cool. It would be cool, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Alexei Novitzky is here too, and this is kind of an impromptu because I'm not prepared. So I always call it impromptu when I'm not prepared. And so anyway, but I have talked to Dave about coming on my channel, and I think this should be interesting. And why don't you, for people who've never watched your channel from my channel,
sure,
why don't you give us sort of a little brief, talk about yourself?
Sure, absolutely. Well, first and foremost, if I could say both for Tony's audience and for my audience that's watching the stream from my side of the channel, hello, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for tuning in. Tony's just been a super fantastic guy. And when he asked me last minute, hey, do you want to come on with me and Alexei? I said, absolutely. So what I do basically is I have I run the podcast, the Generation Zed podcast, on Apple Podcasts, Podbean, and Spotify, of course, in addition to YouTube as well. We cover everything from the nuts and bolts side of physics, if you will, but I don't say that in like in a professional proper way. I don't have a degree or anything of the sort, all the way to the sort of woo-woo esoteric, if you want to call it that, to the paranormal, in addition to what's currently happening around the world in politics. And what we try to do different from others, and this no disrespect to others, is we try to take a neutral stance and try to view every angle of every perspective, and then use process of elimination to then see, okay, what is the most likely outcome of some type of evidential cause. Because I will never say on my end of things, on my show, on my channel, I have proof of anything, because proof is like, you got it right here, you have it right here, and it's like gray alien standing right next to me, right? Evidence, in my opinion, it leads us down a handful of probable causes that can lead us to, again, a handful of conclusions. So that's basically what the show's about. We do all of that. We apply that to politics, the woo-woo esoteric side of things, occult magic, things like that, the nuts and bolts side of the UFO phenomenon, you name it. So again, I can't thank you enough, Tony, for setting this up very last minute, but I'm super grateful, and that's basically what I do.
That's awesome. I've seen some of your videos, and they're informative and entertaining. Of course, most people know Alexei Novitzky. Well, if you've watched my channel any at all.
Actually, Alexei, could you let my audience know what you do and all that?
That's what I was going to say. If you would just give the host a chance. You're not Lou Elizondo, okay?
Sorry,
you can't
Tony.
Just come in and take over the show.
So sorry.
I'm just kidding. We're here to have a good time. I'm just kidding.
I mean, easiest way to put it is human, from planet Earth. And I don't know. I've been learning in my dreams since I was 5. I'm a lifetime practitioner of meditation. But for college, I studied astrophysics, physics, planetary science, and astronomy. I have bachelor's degrees in those from the University of Colorado. And then I have a master's in mechanical engineering. Basically while going through school, I heard a couple things that just didn't really sound right to me in a way, like limitations of perception, and just like the speed of light being a barrier is a good example. They have no answer for where gravity actually comes from or what momentum actually is. And so basically I started writing out a theory, you could say about 7-8 years ago, and it's starting to catch some wind now. So it's pretty cool. And based off the theory, we can actually design interdimensional technologies. So
I don't mean to take over. Obviously, this is Tony's show, and all
I was
that.
only kidding.
I was going to ask what that theory is or was that you put together.
Well, the easiest way to put it is we think the universe is expanding from our perception.
Okay.
At one point in time, we also used to think that the sun orbited the Earth based off of our perception. And so as our science gets better and as our intuition gets better, right, we get a new perception of what's actually happening.
Right.
And so we realized when Galileo went around and said, hey, we actually go around the sun, and so we go around the sun also goes around a galaxy. And at that point, we think that the universe is expanding. But what we learned from Einstein's theory of relativity is that everything is relative. energy of motion, how stretched matter looks, how stretched light looks. And so at the most fundamental perception, we have a consciousness observing a field of energy. And so all the matter we experience, all the light we experience is relative to our frame of motion. And so what I like to say is that our entire universe is also orbiting a structure, and those inner and outer energies of perception add to create a field of energy, which is perceived by our consciousness.
One thing that I always find interesting is when I hear someone say that the universe is expanding in all directions equally, right? As if there's a center, right? I mean, even if you had a big bang, right, and you had an explosion, you would. I guess initially you would have let's call it a blast, and that would. I'm getting some feedback. Sorry, it's starting. It's starting to. It's starting to drive me crazy. And I'm just kidding.
I know what that's like. Yeah.
Well, for some reason it crosswires
my headset.
Yeah, for some reason it crosswires my brain, and I can't think. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that one thing that has never made sense to me is this expansion. I can understand expansion, but not equally in all directions. So that's one thing I was going to ask. Alexa, I've been wanting to ask you this for quite some time about the expansion, and you always see the example of a balloon, right? And they always show the galaxies and stars and whatever on the surface of the balloon, but that's not what we observe, right? We observe a field of depth to the universe, right?
Can you hear me?
I just wanted to
Sorry
ask
about
Tony,
that, Alexa.
That's right. I was just wondering, can you hear me all right or no?
Yeah, I can hear you great. Yeah,
okay, cool. Yeah. Well, I mean, what's in the center of the balloon?
That's what's in the center of the balloon. I mean,
yeah. If we're all on the surface and it's expanding in every direction, there's balloons inside and balloons outside.
Dark energy.
If I could just ask Tony, and I ask this genuinely, how come you have a difficulty grasping why it expands in all directions? Genuinely curious.
Because they also say there's no center of the universe. So that, and you see, right? That's the claim, right? There's no, because which direction are we looking in? That means we would be able to point our telescopes at that direction and gain information, right?
Right. Would this just wanted to, would this fit, Alexei, with your right? Okay, because it's relative.
Right. So that's why our perception is being stretched. At the end of the day.
Right.
Yep.
If I keep looking down, it's just because I'm making notes. So that's would this follow suit with something, Alexei? Have you heard of something called intuitionistic mathematics by chance?
No, not off the top. No, could you explain it? Or
okay, so hold on. Let me make sure that I understand it correctly. For those on my side, you'll see my screen change very quickly. But intuitionistic mathematics.
I can share something if you want to.
Oh, sure.
Share the screen.
It is the philosophy of mathematics. Let's see.
Well, I mean, you'd have to share your screen on stream.
Yeah. 1 second. I'm just trying to get a very, very basic definition.
You can't hoard information for your viewers, okay? You have to
no problem. I'm gonna
share with our viewers too.
No problem at all. I'm gonna put the let's see. Is there chat here? I can put the link in. Private chat. Perfect. Okay. Let me see here. Unfortunately, I couldn't find an actual definition, but this is the link that I'm just on DuckDuckGo search engine.
Okay.
It's hard to put into words. I'm very sorry, Alexei. I'm trying to phrase it the right way so that I don't mess up.
That's all good. Just
Yeah, sorry. If you guys want to carry on, and I'll find a way to word that properly. Let me just see here.
I was going to say carry on because I'm going to bring this. I guess it's up to you, Alexei.
There we go. Yeah. Thank you so much, Tony.
Is that the correct link?
Which are based in intuitionistic logic. Yes, correct. They were introduced in the 1970s, and they represent a formal context within which to codify mathematics based on intuitionistic logic. Let me see. They are formulated on the standard first-order language of Zermelo-Fraenkel set theory and make no direct use of inherently constructive ideas. This is sort of that back and forth as to its pros and cons, but notwithstanding.
One thing I like to do too, Dave, is keep our explanations to things to where, people like me who's a contractor can understand.
You know what? I just thought of the perfect example. So if I say, for example, sorry that it took me so long to figure this out, but if I say, Alexei, Tony, tomorrow it's either going to rain or it's not going to rain. Yes or no, right? Either I'm going to be right or wrong. Now, the question then becomes, to what set or to what standard is that determined, if at all? Because I believe Kurt Jaimungal on Theories of Everything had someone on recently called Nicholas Gissen. And I don't mean to put words in his mouth, but essentially what he was saying, I believe, from my understanding, was, what if the future is indeterminate? There's an undeterministic variable there. So if I say, Tony, Alexei, it's going to rain tomorrow, instead of me being right or wrong, what if I'm neither? Does that make sense? Because it hasn't come yet.
I don't think the future is set myself. I know people think that it is, but I don't think so. I think that's where free will is a variable there too for that too. I believe in free will, and I believe that we decide what our future is going to be. And as a collective, as each of us decide what our future is going to be, those futures add up to be the future of this reality. So I don't think that it's set by any means.
Does that make sense?
Alexei may have another theory.
Yeah. I mean, the future is somewhat set. I mean, the Earth's going to keep going around the sun for a while, right? So in certain scales, you could say that the future is set. But when it comes down to our scale of creation of energy and releases, we also have our personal wants, don't wants, right? Assumptions and expectations.
That's right. But at some point,
energy.
I'm sorry, Alexei, I didn't mean to interrupt you. But
what are you saying? Sorry.
I was just going to say, at some point, we will have the choice of either getting on a starship, powered by Elon's little thrusters, or stay here on Earth, right? So maybe the people who decide to stay on Earth will meet Earth's end when the sun engulfs it in 12 billion years, whatever it is. But those people who decide to leave Earth will have a new horizon, right? A new future.
Yeah, so you could consider each one of those as like a flow of space, almost like, and the escape velocity required is what allows you to leave that vortex of energy, essentially.
Right.
And so when it comes to humans leaving the Earth and taking off, with the proper escape velocity, you'll take off and you'll go out into space and you'll leave that energetic flow of Earth. At that same time, the body's not fit for that. But what I was getting is, right, because like the Schumann resonance, you always have to be like in the proper resonance of Earth's field. If not, the human body doesn't work proper, because there is a golden spot of creation in a way. And that's what I was getting at, is like we have a natural spot where we're kind of created. And then through the expectations, the wants, don't wants, the ripples that we're all sending out, we alter our flow within the Earth itself. So you can do whatever you want, but at what extent to others? I mean, anybody can achieve and be anything, but how many, you could say, flows of space are you going to be disrupting in that process? Right.
We could find a planet with similar gravity, and right. I mean, I understand traveling through space is not healthy for a human body, but right. Couldn't we find a similar planet? I'm interested. This is interesting, Alexei. I've never really thought about what you're saying before. Is that we were created here, or we were meant for this reality, or is that what you're saying?
Yeah, our natural node of manifestation is on Earth, going to sleep when the sun goes down and waking up when the sun comes up. Everything else is a distortion created by our minds, the wants, don't wants, assumptions, and expectations, all overlapping, creating ripples and vortices and paths of least resistance that control the pacing motions of our lives. So in that regard, when it comes to the quantum manifestation of the body and the health, that's where the disease and the sickness comes from, is being away from your golden spot. And when it comes to That's just basically talking about like, health and longevity and stuff like that. So you do have free will to do whatever you want, but at what extent and what risk of your own personal health and the health of others?
Right. Would this,
Yeah.
and I'll explain for your audience, Tony, would this, Alexei, support or go against something called fractal cosmology? And Tony, very quickly for yourself and for the audience, for anyone who may not know, fractal cosmologies, this idea that everything is fractals and we're all pieces of the source, whatever you want to call it, the original, the creator, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I think it totally goes with it.
Okay.
And in the sense that the delta wave would be our biggest fractal of experience. Then after that comes the theta wave. Then comes the alpha, then the beta, the slow gamma, fast gamma. And those all have a relationship to the quantum, you could say, manifestation of matter versus light, but also the field of consciousness that we experience while we're in those states.
Would it be a leap for me to say that if that would be able to be proven mathematically, that would be a sort of theory of everything, so to speak, unified field theory, or no?
It does unify matter and light, yeah.
Okay.
Because the matter and light we perceive is relative to the field of consciousness we're harmonized to. So that ultimately makes consciousness fundamental. And so, like right now, wavelengths have a certain size.
Right.
And at the Planck scale, things act a little differently. But what if we're tuned differently? Like, what if instead of our center of brain and consciousness and function, instead of being centered around 20 hertz, it's centered around 640 hertz? Does matter and light look different?
Right. And this would explain why, if I'm not mistaken, please correct me, guys, Einstein, I think he spent his whole career and up until his death admitted that he couldn't, at least on the surface, publicly, he couldn't figure out what light is.
I don't know if I don't recall him saying that, but he definitely might have. I don't know.
I was gonna say, okay, because I was listening
he
to
certainly had a better grasp than anybody else. I mean, he came up with the science of photovoltaics, right?
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
I wanted to say also
he had a very good understanding. Maybe he didn't, right?
Please forgive me to my audience and to yours, Tony, if I'm misquoting what Einstein had said there. I'd read that.
No, it's okay. No, I'm just saying. I mean, I'm just giving you my perception of his knowledge. I don't know for sure. Obviously, I don't know what was in his mind.
Right.
But when I think of humans who knew a lot about light, I think of Albert Einstein.
Right.
Well, he didn't like the idea of the ether, from what I understand. He was more of like, there's matter and light, but there's no ether. It doesn't exist. I don't know if that's true or not, but
that's why he had a problem with quantum mechanics, right?
Exactly, and the spooky action at a distance.
Yeah.
And so the ether would be like where the light and matter comes from, if you want to think of it like that. But he didn't like thinking of it as ether.
The ether would be, again, see, that would be pulling energy from hyperspatial dimensions, correct?
Yeah, basically 0 point, right? The same thing. I'd be like towards the center of the vortex, the fifth dimensional vortex.
Well, at some point in time, we were thinking ether was that dark energy, right? That we couldn't identify, that stuff that makes up, 70 or 80% of the universe.
What if it doesn't reside in this dimension or reality, if you will, but rather presents itself as what we call dark energy, when as a matter of fact it's a multi-pronged, multi-layered whatever it is,
yeah
it's kind of funny.
Makes more sense.
Yeah, in these discussions you kind of have to go back and forth between the woo and the science, because in other words, scientists can based on the rotation of galaxies and just all of that, the way things are mapped out in the universe, they can pretty much map out dark energy. They don't know what it is, but they can map it out, right? So, and they have done that. So, yeah, maybe it's bleeding over from the 10th dimension or whatever, but it's not.
It's not matter within our perception.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you, Alexei. I was pausing for you to come.
Well, no, but it ties perfectly back into what Dave is saying. Because when you have those different layers you could say it would be matter in a different perception, a different layer of perception. For example, I would say it'd be matter in the bigger realm of experience. And the reason I say that is because from our perception, it appears that matter bumps, like if you have raw energy bouncing back and forth, it's like dark matter is the veins or the tubes of it. And so in order to get that reverberation to create experiences that harmonize, you have to have bouncing of energy. And so dark matter could be like tunnels that energy is bouncing within to create matter and galaxies.
A transition gap, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, it's just like a wall almost. But from our perception, it's just straight and fluid and flat.
Okay. I wanted to run something by both you guys and see what your guys' thoughts would be on this. My audience, I covered this, I think, last week, but never hurts to bring it up again. Also, sorry, Channel Warhorse in Tony's chat here, Thoth, the Emerald Tablets terminology. Absolutely. So in 1864, someone by the name of James Clerk Maxwell, if I'm not mistaken, allegedly had sort of found the theory of everything, at least relative to his perspective, of a unified field theory. And it was that essentially he basically proposed that magnetism and please excuse me, I think magnetism and EMF waves are interdependent within one another. They're not separate. Again, going back to the Thoth Emerald tablets, as above, so below, that sort of duality, if you will. And Heinrich Hertz, Oliver Heaviside, and one other individual, quote unquote, after Mr. Maxwell passed away, edited or interpreted his work to the point in which they removed a certain variable there that then created a handful of issues within physics that Einstein then based his theory of general relativity off of. Have you guys heard of this?
I have heard of something like that, but I'm not that familiar with the story and how it actually goes. You know.
Okay.
I have heard that they took something out or was interpreted improperly.
Right. Apparently, Mr. Maxwell had a variable called G, and that G variable represented the ether and actually multiple layers of the ether in which you could pull energy from, which would corroborate Dr. Eric Davis's report on pulling, vacuum, hyperspatial, all that
Definitely.
stuff. Right,
Yeah.
right. So
Yeah.
when we look at that, one thing I wanted to point out to you, Tony, and Alexei, and your audience is that one of the key alleged hidden secrets from that they were trying to cover up really quickly was that the either VLF, ELF, or ULF, all meaning the same thing, ultra low frequencies that hug the ground. Now, it's sort of been a soft disclosure. The United States Air Force has sort of kind of admitted that they harness that, but everything that on the public that we measure is within hertz. Ironically, named after Heinrich Hertz, the guy who allegedly butchered the damn thing. So, just wanted to know if you guys had heard of that, if you guys had thoughts on that. I'm sure it's not the first time in human history where someone's great work was allegedly butchered, but
I've definitely thought about that, the different frequencies and how they affect experience, and just how, I even wanted to make a simple system of speakers, essentially, that would get sound energy from highways. So it's almost like the same thing if they're doing that. But then, like, when you think about Skinwalker Ranch and places like that, essentially they have big domes and structural, geologic structures that might potentially create those types of frequencies to have experiences come in. I really don't know though.
Interesting. You got any thoughts?
I'm just kind of talking off the top of my head.
No, of course. I'm
sorry.
I didn't come prepared. I'm just shooting my mouth off.
That's good. I like it.
Yeah, I'm certainly not.
Definitely
I actually like conversations where no one's prepared. It gets kind of your true, thoughts out. Right. I remember when Lou was on in my first interview with him, we got to talking about frequencies. Oh, that's when I was helping out the Galileo project with their little project. They had a little project they had me working on. So anyway, it's a long story, but they were dealing with transmitting certain frequencies. So did I do this before? I got to go back and watch my own interview. And either before or after or during the interview, he said something about low frequency, like infrasound.
That's why I want to show. Let me see if I can find this video. I'll share it with us. I'll share it with the audience. But it's going to be acoustic levitation using sound.
Oh, I've seen these. Yeah.
Yeah, but I want you guys to look at the cross pattern that's made.
Please, yeah, absolutely. Tony, I know what part of the interview you're referring to.
Okay, good.
You said to Lou in the first interview, you're like, I like how you said it too. You're like, hey, I want to know what's on those top secret documents, the frequency there. And he's like, I can't tell you that, but he hinted at ultra low
There was some kind of
frequencies,
wink or breadcrumb or something, I remember.
I really think there's something to that, the ELF frequencies, because what they do allegedly is they hug the ground, and it's something that can't be detected in a multitude of ways that we, like consumer products, can't do.
Yeah.
So I just did a share screen.
Oh, let's see. Let me get rid of this one.
Can you see a YouTube?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All right. So just this is smaller wave sizes. Right. This is not,
okay.
It's all relative. So did you see that cross pattern that gets made?
Yep.
Whoa. You know the tic tac?
Yeah. It shows up as different points, right? East, west, north, and south there.
Well, this is just showing. Yeah. This just shows how it works. So you have like acoustic levitation going on. And if you have those longer waves, you can acoustically levitate bigger things.
And to see, to me, this is just more basic. To me, this kind of stuff isn't anti-gravity. It's just.
But look, what I want to show is that cross pattern. That matches the same cross pattern.
Yeah.
Right there, the rippling of the water.
Right.
Under the tic tac.
But it looks like they've got sound coming from those the adjacent corners.
Right. Right. That's how they're doing it in this effect.
Yeah. So that's what's creating the cross pattern. Is they've got 4 waves hitting in the middle, right? So all the interference is happening in the middle.
Right. So that creates the waves underneath.
Yeah.
That gives you an indicator.
Wow.
That's pretty cool.
If that is a way that the propulsion is used with respects to the with certain craft, I would imagine that's one of many. What do you guys think?
So,
there's more than one way to make that these craft operate, not just like, say, anti-gravity, not just acoustic levitation, not just nuclear fission. What do you guys think?
I personally don't think that the craft are going to use that type of technology because that's dependent upon stationary. I mean, to me, that's not. And see, that's what I was trying to say. To me, that's not anti-gravity.
Right.
That's just because you've got to
modify that and you put the speakers in the object itself, it becomes a different system.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have speakers just.
When I think of anti-gravity, I think of something that actually, like a warp bubble or something, right? That defeats. It's more gravity defeating, not.
Well, that's where John Searle Tech comes into play. I don't know. Have you heard of him?
No. What's he about?
Oh, you're gonna love him.
Yeah.
Oh man. John Searle is basically just this British inventor. I believe he was from England or whatever. And basically, he designed a machine off of his dreams. It was supposed to be a generator, and it ended up levitating, creating warp bubbles around it. And so then he spent the next 10 years of his life, 20 years of his life, working with different groups and build a whole bunch of flying discs based off of his Searle effect generator. He's given lectures all over the world. Edwards Air Force Base here in Florida reached out to him at one point.
And his name is John
Searle. I can look that up for us too real quick.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. But he's one of the guys. He's like my go-to guy. He's like, well, they probably use something like that, And he's just one guy.
I could be totally wrong. I'm of the opinion that there's a multitude of ways to.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm just saying. This is just one.
Oh right.
Oh yeah, my thinking is that they use something like warp bubbles to cross the galaxy, and then when they're in a local system, they may have a different something that deals with gravity at that point. You know what I mean?
Right.
The local, whatever the local situation is, right? So they scout, and that may be what the UAPs are. They're scouts. They're saying, hey, there's gravity.
Right.
Here's what exists here. Now this is just my impression. right? I don't obviously.
Of course.
I don't have proof for anything I say. I don't claim to either, but that's my impression is that, and that's what I get these thoughts that if there were crashes, that maybe the early craft that came here maybe weren't quite as prepared as the ones that come here now.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just throwing.
All right, I found a good video, and I have it at a good spot to share it.
Sure. Channel Warhorse in your chat here, Tony. Seems like he's or she, whomever have developed a gravity engine, 13 feet.
Have you seen this right here? Can you guys see it?
Let me bring it up.
This is the John Searle.
No, I haven't seen this.
I think I've seen this one.
I've definitely shared this one with you, or
Yeah.
I was just kind of showing Dave. But so here you go. Here's like his little warp bubble. But he's traveled. He's made these things. People. I'm surprised people don't know about it. It blows my mind.
Is he still alive today, or?
I think so.
Oh, John Searle, I thought he'd passed away.
High energy density mechanic gyro flywheel.
Because he was like 80 back in the 70s.
Last I heard, I was calling around the guys that made that documentary. I called them about 2-3 years ago, and they said he was being held by the British government, kind of thing.
I was gonna say, because with that type of knowledge, assuming like he was able to make it work and all that, I'm surprised again his work wasn't snatched up whenever he had first come out with it or started sharing it and what have you.
No, they let him do it for a while. I made a short video on it. He worked with a private company. They had it called Project Lunic, and like they were all a whole bunch of like rich guys, and they wanted him to build these ships. And he built like 50 of them maybe, and a couple of them big enough to carry lots of people.
Wow.
Yeah, he said he could go to the moon in 1 hour. And that was like in 1960, 1970 when he was first doing that.
Well, speaking of which, again, take this as you will. Ben Rich, former head of Lockheed Martin Skunk Works division, claimed that he said it took initially, what was it? So you know how initially it took 3 days for Armstrong and them to get to the moon? He claimed that was not the case. He claimed that they got there in under 3 minutes. He claimed that that it was somewhat staged. I mean, this goes into the whole moon thing, but that's what he had claimed. Not saying he's right.
70,000 miles an hour.
I have no idea.
When viewing it in that way, again, it's that thing that's discussed so commonly now about, is it really moving the craft, or is there some type of bubble put around it that voids space and time, right? That is like outside of that grid of what we're living in right now.
I think you kind of have to talk about that at the same time, where people just think, oh, really? Because
yeah, no, for me it makes sense, like perfectly. If you alter your natural node of creation, you're going to get shot to the stars almost instantly. Like the difference in distance, like if perception is being stretched based off of our relative frame of motion, if you jump one shell, you've jumped pretty far.
Right.
Like it's all perception based. And if we're orbiting a greater structure and you change like where you're naturally being focused, you're going to fly off the Earth if the Earth is already going like, near the speed of light.
Right. And I was actually just going to read that. Greg, by the way, how's it going, brother? Is it propulsion or repulsion?
It's just motion.
Shifting nodes.
Yeah, I mean,
I've explored that there have been some craft that allegedly use the gravity of like Earth's gravity to propel itself off and what have you. And then I've also read that there's been other forms of propulsion that don't require that whatsoever. It pulls from something elsewhere. To speak.
That's where it's like, what is gravity, right? I think that's like one of the greatest questions, and what is momentum? And so that's what, and so if you think, I think that they were coming from a a fifth dimensional vortex essentially, and that's we're all being focused from the past and from the future. But we have our now moment, right? But so there's really like this electromagnetic fluid that we're in, and we're all connected through synchronization of energy. And basically by putting, you could say, metamaterials on one side or stretching, crunching and twisting, and you get those right harmonics, you'll jump to another shell of experience. It'll move you through time, move you through space, space time, whatever you want to call it. You'll be moved outward or inward in that vortex. And if you move outward in the vortex, you're going to be jumping like to the stars almost. So like, I think even just by moving like an inch in that direction, we'd go way higher in real physical 4D space than you might think.
Than currently right now. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I mean, if perception's being stretched, then it's almost like the distance between galaxies resembles the distance between atoms.
I think what's hard for some, and even me, what's hard for some people, why it's hard to talk about these things is because, it's like tomorrow I got to go out and I get a truck and I got to load up a bunch of 2x4s and I got to put gas in that vehicle and I got to push on the pedal and make it go to get those 2x4s to the job site, right? I mean, I have to deal with this reality. And when we talk about fanciful things like, oh, we can just take off to the moon in a minute, nobody knows what we're talking about, and so it's good to keep it grounded in a way, unless we can figure out how to describe to people how that would actually work or theorize, even if it's a theory, right?
Yeah, well, it has to do with the synchronization of the energy coming in. And so like, for example, the John Searle generator, you have things spinning and they're in motion. And when you increase the velocity of any system in orbit, you have to go out further. So like, say I'm a satellite orbiting the Earth and I make it go faster around the Earth. Now the satellite's going to be drifting further away from the center of the Earth. And so when you're talking about the synchronization of energy from a fifth dimensional vortex into our 4D space-time, that's why gyroscopes are precessing. And so when you force precession of a gyroscope, you're actually forcing it outward in the fifth dimensional vortex, which causes it to rise relative to the Earth. So I don't think it's very fantastical or not understood.
I was speaking in I meant in common language. It's right for people. Here's the problem. A lot of people don't want to even think. They don't know what we're talking about in the first place. Why are we talking about it? What are we talking about? They're getting up, going to work every day. Making money, feeding their kids. I like to try to somehow relate it to, not necessarily relate it, but keep it, okay, here's where we are now. This is what we're dealing with. How do we get to that? How do we get to where we can use that? What's the step from getting from here to there?
So if I could first just try to summarize what Alexei's saying, and then I think I have an example to put it in more layman's terms, like you're saying, Tony. So Alexei, you're basically saying, and tell me if I'm wrong, please, that because of relativity, what would happen is that if, say, this pen were to be the craft, instead of going from, say, pretend my microphone is like the moon, instead of actually going from, Earth to the moon in the way that we perceive it in the third, fourth dimension, what you would then have is, say, if you were to put that bubble, that warped space and time, even moving slightly an inch in that fifth dimension brings you to the moon in this one.
Yes.
Okay. That's
totally.
Does that make more sense, Tony? Hopefully.
No, I mean, I understand. That's not the point. I think I'm trying to.
Oh, I got you.
I'm trying to keep it.
So with John Searle Tech, though, that guy Hernandez out in Texas is pretty close to reproducing one of his generators, and he's trying to release it out to the public, so people can have his John Searle generator at home, and they can power their homes with it.
See, this is another.
Even Einstein was talking about folding space time. So and once those points, once it folded and connected, you could travel between those 2 points, right?
Right.
And that was the shortcut. So it's not that I'm not trying to say what I like to do, and this is what I do, even when I talk to, like, say, my subcontractors at work, we talk about what we want to do, and then we talk about how we're going to get there.
Yeah.
What this is what we want to do or want to understand. How would you take steps, or what are the mental steps to get from there to Alexei's theory, which I've been reading for how many months now, Alexei, and I'm still,
like 8 months or so.
Yeah. Alexei's like, you failed, boy. You failed my class.
Well, I think I know what you're saying, Tony. How can it be applied, and how could it be done? So, like, I know what you're saying, and this is actually, please forgive me, I don't have the answer, but I see, the thing is that this makes me think, with respects to a certain form of disclosure coming out. I don't even know the answer to this. I think of this all the time. If anti-gravity, if free energy, whatever, if this were to create a paradigm shift where, again, free energy were to be produced, we would not need to pay electricity bills. Big oil would just collapse overnight. This is obviously very bad for those at the top with big money interests and all that stuff. I've always been thinking to myself, is there a way that it could be brought out and private industries not affected? And I'm not trying to defend the big oil guys, not at all, but I know what Tony's saying. How could it be applied in that way? As for the actual science, I think it's just been kept secret, super, super secret, obviously, because of that fact. But
right, and we don't have any leadership that one side doesn't want to do anything and the other wants to do it overnight. We don't have any leadership saying, let's take baby steps to get there. Okay.
Right.
Let's let's start reducing our dependency on fossil fuels a little bit at a time, a step at a time. And we are doing that through electric vehicles or whatever, right?
Right.
It's a snail's pace. But one of the things I'm going to be really disappointed in is that if our government is holding, energy technology that we could be using to take those baby steps, and they're not releasing it because they're worried about putting, oil companies. Now, I agree, you can't tank the stock market overnight over it, but you have to figure out a way to do it, or if we don't figure out a way to do it, there's going to be some calamity that forces us to do it.
I'm of the opinion that I guess you could say, the factions of individuals in the military industrial complex are dying out of old age. The ones that really wanted to keep that knowledge for themselves, that probably made the deals with the big oil guys back in the day. I think those guys are dying out, specifically ones that were from the Atomic Energy Commission, Edward Teller, a few others, the Air Force, Collins Elite, that whole alleged multitude of factions there. But yeah, see, that's the thing, Tony. You make a very good point, because if all it takes is one prick, forgive my English, to just sit there and go, nope, I want my profits till I die, and then pass it on to his son. And if they have political influence, like you said, Tony, stuff could have been there since the 50s, 60s.
Here's the thing: nobody has to lose any money.
Right.
If that's the fear, we're giving farmers money to not produce crops. We can give oil companies money to not produce oil.
I wonder if it's these older guys just not even wanting to do the transition. That's another thing that I wonder too, right? Like, just a couple of these guys that are, they're going to croak soon, but they're like, I want my profits. I don't want to make any, because apparently the move to the energy sector, to renewable energies, like for jobs, all that, again, maybe I'm wrong here, but apparently it's far more profitable than oil. It's just that transition period, if I'm not mistaken, that no one really wants to, go through.
The real problem is with renewable energy is that it's old technology already.
You're right.
What we're calling renewable energy the photo, we had solar power in 1890 or something, right? Mm-hmm. So it wasn't the same. It wasn't a silicon chip or whatever. It wasn't silicon based, but we had solar panels. I'll have to go back and look. It was in the 19th century, the late, right? So all the technology in solar, even to today, can I say even today without an extra 12 syllables that those wafers or those silicon wafers that we're calling renewable energy are only about 25-30% efficient, right?
Right.
So we're wanting that's the only argument I have of taking because I was installing solar panels 30 years ago, and people after they understand the economics behind them, it's going to take me 25 years to pay them off. It's hard. What we need is new. We need fusion. We need whoever's got that technology to release it and move on.
Which leads me to when Hal Puthoff spoke with I forgot his name there, Eric Weinstein, and I forgot the other gentleman's name who I think put that video out there. Anyways, point being is that I think Jesse Michaels was his name. Hal Puthoff seemed to, in his words, express some sympathy, he said, for Einstein's theory of general relativity, just that there were some missing variables in it, and those variables were not fixed, as they call it. Am I making sense, Alexei? Just want to make sure that I am.
Well, I mean, that goes back to what you were saying earlier, right?
Right. Yeah.
With that the
hidden
equation.
keys. Yeah.
Yep.
Right. That makes me think too. And I remember when Hal said to Jesse, he goes, "I have sympathy for people who travel along that path of, Einstein's GR is not wrong, but there's missing keys there." I wonder if there are other. This speaks to what you were saying, Tony, and even Alexei, as the universe expands and you think of fractals and all that. I wonder if there are other variables, just like or other total ways, just like there are allegedly many different ways of propulsion for the craft. If there are different ways that one could get to that quantum state or higher or above.
The way I see it is like anytime you can basically swirl up space and make that nice vortex, you're having some type of effect.
Right.
It comes down to synchronizing with the next layer. And so that's a certain amount of energy in a certain distance. But I don't know the number yet.
Right. No, fair enough. Enough.
But I also think that certain metamaterials can also create the type of overlapping waves and like create swirls in different patterns.
Right.
Can even do that. Yeah.
Interesting, because, okay. So now, do you guys, I don't want to say believe, but subscribe to some type of simulation theory? We may be in a video game of sorts, because I found it's interesting. Computer scientists seem to be leaning in that direction when they speak with physicists and whatnot, but it gets iffy there.
Yeah, I don't think of it as like a computer by any means. We're definitely living in our reality. You know what I'm saying? We have created this reality and it's the one we're experiencing. But are there different layers within the reality? Yeah, I think so.
I think I'm sorry. Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Alexei.
That's pretty much what I was getting at.
I think people get that analogy of a simulation confused with our current idea, our current understanding of simulation. When you say that to a gamer, they're like, "Oh, cool, it's a simulation." I think what those people who are suggesting that means is that it was pre-programmed. In other words, this reality, this universe was designed, intelligent design, to me is more like a simulation than a computer game, right?
I like your definition much better. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm all on board with there being created, intelligent design. I guess I have a bias towards design, but I don't. Any of those people who want to say it's a simulation or a hologram, they can come with me and I'll take my nail gun and I'll shoot a nail through their hand and I'll ask them, "How's your simulation working out now? Yeah. How's your hologram working out for you?"
Oh, man.
I honestly don't understand how people can realistically say that. I don't know. How do they justify pain and suffering? And I mean, a hologram is a hologram, right? It's just an image. It's just light crisscrossing.
Well, that's what we are. We're just light crisscrossing. And so we are a projection.
We have amassed matter
We're a
into
projection,
lumps.
but we're not a game.
What? Huh?
Our space is a projection. It is light overlapping and crisscrossing and being stretched and crunched.
We're not just light. I mean, we've been transposed into matter, right? I'm a dense hunk of matter, right?
Only relative to me. And
I can be dispersed into light.
I'm gonna okay. So actually, before I go a little woo on you guys, I wanted to read a couple comments from Tony's chat here. If Angry Drunken German asks if there can be biological computers, can there be biological simulations? I take that as that sentience debate. That's what I take that as.
Isn't that what artificial intelligence? I guess not exactly. Biological forms with artificial intelligence.
See,
the grays, and then what the grays are.
Allegedly. See, this is another thing too. So the grays. Yeah, there's a lot of speculation on the grays and different. They're robots, if you will, biological probes and whatnot. But I'd love to get your guys' takes on that, because I was going to ask you guys some little woo questions, but maybe not as woo as you might think. But what do you guys think of the grays? The alleged grays, I should say. I don't want to say they exist. I haven't seen one myself.
I'll let Tony go on that one.
I mean, I don't know, but my impression is when I see one is that I'm just kidding. When I shake hands with one, I think that they are probably. I think there's probably advanced life forms that. So I was talking to someone in the comments about this today, and how I don't think any kind of any advanced life form has probably moved on past like any sort of emotions, and it's more based on logic, like artificial intelligence would be, right?
Right.
What's the goal? How do we achieve the goal? Step 1, 2, 3, 4. Very regimented, very logic driven.
Right.
I mean, and there's evidence of that, I think. Today, if there are beings that are around us, they certainly aren't helping us in any way, right? So they don't have the same moral code as we have, obviously. I mean, there's evidence of this, right? They let the United States bomb Hiroshima and Nagasaki without any problems, right? Without any any input. So I think when I think of a gray, I think of some advanced, there's some biology there, obviously, but more driven based on logic or
the big picture,
intelligent design built in. Whoever created those grays were created for a purpose. I don't know. What do you think, Alexei?
Yeah,
I'm having fun with this. I'm not saying that's the way I like to think of this stuff.
Yeah, there's probably a whole bunch of different types. Some good, some bad. Some have good intentions, some have bad intentions, things like that. Just like people, just like all animals, right? They're different. Yep. Some tick because of different things or whatever. And I've had a very vivid meditation, and I encountered that before.
Oh,
and
wow.
Basically, when I was 10, that's when I had the most vivid meditation ever, and that's when I first saw the delusions of mankind. Was during a meditation like that, and I was literally shown the delusions of mankind. How we put everything where it is, we put the concrete where it is, we put the trees where they are, we create the philosophies, the ways, the lines of thinking that we follow. How we literally create our world through our projections. So As far as my experience, I'm saying it was all meditation, not physical, but very enlightening, and positive, and definitely, not a negative thing in any way. So
right, exactly.
Yeah.
Huh.
Very enlightening.
Wow, that's awesome. I see Channel Warhorse said DNA per 2014 Nobel. Channel Warhorse, I think you're referring to Luc Montagnier, the water teleportation experiment that they sort of very quickly covered up, tried to pretend like it never happened. That thing. Yeah.
I've never heard of that.
Right, there you go.
I vaguely remember this. Yeah, there was an article in some news magazine where they teleported some nano or a quant. What was it? A quanta?
Water memory, something like that. It was some water teleportation.
Maybe I'm thinking about a different article. Yeah.
No, you might be. It might be the same one.
Yeah.
But I did want to ask you guys. This is a little woo, but I don't. We're just hanging out. What do you guys think of there being some type of soul trap after the physical body passes? That light that everyone claims you walk into is a trap to reincarnate and not ascend, whether frequentially, spiritually, you name it.
Why would it have to be a trap?
To confine us, to keep us for some type of food of sorts.
If there is reincarnation, then you get to make the choice. Again, at every level, I think we have free will, and supposedly we have chosen this life that this reality that we're living right now. Each of us chose it upon as that
right.
Like at some point, I decided I wanted to come back as a design build contractor in this life.
Right.
That's one of my gurus' beliefs.
Nice. It's hard to answer that one, right? Because you have to have that experience. So I'm trying to think of reincarnation stories. Are there any stories of the Dalai Lama being don't do it, don't go? It's a trap.
Well, you don't know. You don't see your memory. You don't have the benefit of the memory of the decision you made.
I'm joking. I don't know.
Oh, I'm giving you the explanation of what people would say, who believe in this. And I'm not saying I don't. I just don't. I don't believe in anything.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't mean I don't believe in anything. I mean I don't like the word believe. But the people I have read who talk about this, right, say that you chose, at the point that you chose, and the switch is turned on or off, whatever it is, your memory is then erased from the point from there to when you die again or pass on or whatever to the next choice in life. Right.
There's definitely people that have had good memories though transfer over.
Oh,
reincarnation stories.
Oh, they're just pulling your leg.
They might be. They might just be making good TV, but some of them seem pretty legit.
Oh, well, if I could say as well, just to clarify, just because there may, and again, we're just shooting the crap out here, but just because there may be some type of trap, I apologize if I associated a negative rhetoric or connotation with that. I'm not trying to say. When I say trap, I mean positive experience after physical death, but not allowing the soul, the chi, the prana, whatever you want to call it, to ascend, but rather recycle. Not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just
no. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I totally know what you're talking about. I don't have any experience of that though.
Right.
Not that you know of.
Yeah.
No, not that we're just
You don't remember.
Right, exactly. See, but that's another thing too. This then there's the whole angle of hypnotic regression, right? When people say they can remember certain things from their past lives. Now, to be fair though, it's been also said with hypnotic regression, to play devil's advocate, that if you have someone someone conducting the session that is planting you or seeding you ideas, then that's another issue too. Abductee experiencers will go into a session, and apparently the wrong way to do it is when the person doing the hypnosis says, okay, what did you see when you were on the craft? You're not supposed to say, what did you see when you're on the craft? You were just supposed to say, what are you seeing? Because by saying when on the craft, you're seeding the person during their regression into then, again, whether it happened or not, conflating their memories. So now you're mixing real ones with imagination.
Right.
Yeah. What do you guys think?
Is it Jan? I think Janism that thinks that there's a certain process. In other words, there's a certain number of reincarnations before you can reach the ultimate, nirvana or whatever.
Sure. Yeah.
I think that kind of ties back into the physics of love and the dimensional alignments, where you have to have you have to be a certain distance from your golden spot before you can even actually properly harmonize to the next layers.
That.
Yeah.
Right. And there's physics behind that?
Yeah, well, somewhat. I mean, in order to create a stable vibration, right? Like you have to, like if you have a sphere and you're trying to create a harmonic like resonance within it, the more disturbed the sphere is, the less likely you're going to create the proper, like a perfect petri dish of water, and you want to create perfect rings in it. If you start shaking the water around, you're not going to be able to make the next harmonic in there. It's got to be nice and stable and
all fit.
You get what I'm saying? Like the perfect size is the perfect back and forth vibration.
That's exactly what I was thinking of earlier when we were talking about the sound waves levitating. Is in that dish is the system for those waves that petri dish that you were talking about.
Right, and that's what if you want to relate that to experience, I mean, that's what I say. We have like a sphere of consciousness, and inside our sphere, we have to create these perfect waves that harmonize with the already existing quantum state. And that's like, so by settling your so like basically your stillness is what allows the denser realms to be created within you, essentially.
The denser realms right now. I don't want to say what about the lighter realms, if that maybe that's not the right word, but
I call it the less dense, lower verse. I call that the lower verse. Yeah, so we're a creation in quotes of the lower verse. The thoughts, the wants, don't wants, assumptions, and expectations of their ripples create us, and then we have our own wants, don't wants, assumptions, and expectations that create the fluid of experience for denser realms.
Right. What?
Yeah.
Huh. That's really interesting. Have you guys heard of, by any chance, plasma theory?
No.
Okay. let me try and grab that link really quickly, if I could here, and I'll send it to you, Tony, if I can find it. Plasma theory.
I mean, I think I know where you're going with this.
Are you going with the ectoplasma?
Let's see. Hold on.
I mean, related to UAPs. I mean, there's
this right here.
Obviously, some kind of maybe plasma is a way that they transform between dimensions or something.
Right, plasma cosmology. That's I just put that link, Tony. There, you don't have to put it up if you don't want. It's just a basic description. But I only ask that because I'd like to get your guys' takes on that, Alexei, on plasma, because it seems to be quite a, I don't know, I don't want to say controversial, but sort of like stigmatized topic to address within the at least in past decades and whatnot. I don't know if in the last 5-10 years things have changed slowly, but I mean, the thing with plasma is that it's difficult, it seems, to sort of define what it is, what you could do with it. Does that make sense? Or
yeah, I'm looking at the theory here, plasma cosmology, the term plasma universe.
Let's see, I'm trying to bring it up.
I've heard the electric universe, so I would have to look into this actually. Like,
sure.
Look, I've heard the electric universe before, and like the way I think of stuff relating highly to the electric universe, and then also the holographic universe.
Right.
So I think they're all basically the same, and plasma is basically just different densities of the fluid. But I really don't know.
Right there, I just wanted to read and get your take on this, Alexei, if that's cool, because you studied astrophysics. It says, third paragraph from the top, cosmologists and astrophysicists who have evaluated plasma cosmology reject it because it does not match the observations of astrophysical phenomenon as well as current cosmological theory. Very few papers supporting plasma cosmology have appeared in the literature since the mid-90s. Okay, that's what I was trying to say about the literature side of it. But could you explain, if that's cool, why many astrophysicists reject that?
I don't know. Like I said, I'd have to look into what they're actually saying.
I'm not trying to put you on the spot, man. I'm just,
Yeah, I would have to look into what they're actually saying.
Is that a gotcha question?
No, I'm not. No. No.
I'm just kidding.
I would have to know what plasma cosmology is.
That's pretty heavy for an impromptu.
I'm guessing on it because I don't even know what they're trying to say it is.
Gotcha.
I mean, we all kind of understand plasma as the other state of matter, right? Solid, liquid.
Yeah, but if they're trying to say it has to do with like which density is the energy coming from, then I kind of get it, because there would be different densities of plasma and they'd be related to like our experience in that regard. the synchronization of the energy coming from those different densities. But I don't know if that's what they're saying, and it wouldn't relate to our modern theories, because our modern theory says the universe is expanding. It doesn't have anything to do with different layers of perception. But so I don't know if that would be the relationship that you're looking for.
I appreciate the fact that you know nothing about it and you gave already some insight. Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
That's the best I can do with knowing nothing.
No worries, man. Thank you. Yeah, sorry, I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
No, it's good. It's good. I'll have to look into it. That's almost my thing though. It's like I've been learning in my dreams, right, since I was like 5 years old, and one of the lessons I've got is to like remain stupid, like remain as dumb as possible.
Could it be like speaking to a larger picture of not accepting that you don't know everything in and of itself makes you more, I guess you could say, wise, if you will, to being open to more things? Not
necessarily that, but everything that's taught to me is created by another man. And the only thing that's real is my perception and my understanding of reality.
And that would be the quantum slit eye experiment would prove that.
No, I mean, like, you're born into different like spirals of thought process.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And so I go to school, they teach me math. Okay, that's math, but that's not like my understanding of world. Or like you get taught history, or you get taught something like that doesn't make my world. Those are just things that people say, and that's how you get the A. That's not really what I've experienced in my life. So I only know my experience.
Got you. Now, what do you guys think of like all these different, ideas we've been throwing around and stuff? What if it's sort of like multiple pieces to not just a puzzle, but like multiple slices to a pizza? It's not that one is right and another one is wrong, but that there may be I'm not trying to use this as an excuse to just bring everyone's theories in, but that a good chunk of them may actually fit in and explain one another synchronistically.
Well, I mean, it has to be that way. At this point, it does, right? No one has the unification theory, so it may be, Alexei's vortexes and your quarks and somebody else's muons and somebody else, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
It may be that it's a combination of all of the above. I don't know. Right. I can't help but think I'm just fascinated by this because I follow all these different science magazines, blogs and stuff. And just the other day I read, we found human fossils that predate another 30,000 years from what we thought before. Sorry.
We found life.
We had textbooks that said humans were this old. They entered history this date in time.
Right.
Oh, well. I don't want to get too political about it, but like, I mean, even just over the last 10 years. No, but I'm about to get a little more. Okay. Like even over the last 10 years, what have we seen on the news? Like just so much back and forth, like depending on which station you watch is what history you'll have. And so now just extrapolate that 100,000 years.
Right. Also, I just wanted to clarify, Alexei, when I brought up earlier slit eye experiment, I was trying to talk about perspective, about how everyone's reality is different.
Slit
experiment.
Oh yeah, that's the double slit experiment.
Yeah, I thought that's what you were talking about.
Yeah, everybody's perceiving like a different realm of experience, right?
Right.
Like different from their position. Like even just two people in the same room are still in a different position, experiencing a different energy.
Right.
You consider 1 foot away, right? They have a different perception.
Exactly.
Well, and perception was what actually made the difference in the double slit experiment, right? Or observation. Right. Observation is what actually made the difference. Or
great point.
Well, and that's the thing too, is like, so when you get to even smaller and smaller observations, what the tool you're using to observe what you're looking at actually changes what you're looking at. And so that's why I like to say there really is no difference. It's like just a perception game.
If I could say really quick, I was listening to a debate between, one of them was, I believe a physicist at CERN, and another one I don't recall. But anyways, it was a female who worked at CERN, and then another was a male, both very, very smart. And I'm listening to this debate, and the male, I think he's a scientist, he was basically saying like, okay, there needs to be a bigger picture here. Basically what we're talking about, throwing ideas around, basically. And the female scientist, no disrespect to her, but she seemed to say, okay, I'm all for this, but we need to explore these different possibilities under a certain set of rules. And I'm saying to myself, by definition, by setting those set of rules there, are you not already limiting yourself? Now, maybe I'm wrong. I'm just, just thinking.
I think so. Yeah, but I mean, like, maybe she meant by like keeping it ethical, So,
well,
I'm just going. There's some
Sure.
rules you might want to follow.
In defense of the current scientific method, what she might have meant was that we need to have a set of standards that we can test by.
Right.
Right. So that when we have our controls, if you have one control and I'm using another control, we can't compare our test results, right?
And that's what the male scientist was saying. He was saying to his colleague there, he was like, I'm not trying to butcher your work or anything like this. However, the rules in which you set are based on what you said, Alexei, the tool in which you're measuring it with. And that's when she sort of was like, I don't mean, this is just my interpretation of it. She seemed to be discomforted by the fact
that's because it's so hard to actually explain that there really is this whole bigger picture thing, right?
So what I'm talking. You've seen this before. From. You've seen people get uncomfortable.
No, but I understand. I understand what you're saying. Like, they don't know where gravity's coming from. They don't know where momentum comes from, and so they're trying to explain these things with their current understanding, but they might need to relook at everything.
Actually, right.
Yeah.
I wanted to, if it's cool with you guys, I'll send you this link, Tony. Physical, sort of a little bit of a fun thing to look at to show the way in which there's the old, I don't want to say old way because who am I to say, but the old style of thinking, so to speak, compared to the new, more, I guess, open-minded perspective. So this,
I just wanted to,
sure.
I was going to go ahead. I wanted to extrapolate a little bit more because you were talking about the different tool that you're actually observing with actually influences the reality that's being measured. And so if you want to think about the energetic relationships, like, I think the easiest way to compare it would be at first, like, I have a perception and, Tony has a perception and then you have a perception. But then now let's think of us as different types of crystals and different instruments. If I'm mostly being created by, let's say, iron, and you're mostly being created by, I'm just making up words like carbon, and Tony, you're mostly, I don't know, pick an element.
Plasma.
It could be whatever. But like that's like the energetic relationships. What I'm getting at is it's the energetic relationship between the observer, which is the element or whatever type of matter you're using to observe, and what you're observing. So if iron is being magnified from a certain distance and density, and whatever else is being magnified from certain, so everything has a different energetic relationship to begin with. And so your tool, when you get to those smaller scales, will also have a different energetic relationship. Iron looks different to copper than gold looks like to copper, because they're both different observers.
Got you.
This kind of brings me to something I kind of wanted to talk about at some point with somebody, Alexei or you, Dave, or somebody. But tell me if you think this is depressing. Oh, dang it. See, I went and tainted the answer. All right, so this is the Galileo project, and this is the ground rules. I think I broke one of these. But anyway, the Galileo project is only interested in openly available scientific data and a transparent analysis of it. Well, that's kind of in a nutshell, available scientific data. That's classified government information, whatever it is, cannot be shared. Oh, which cannot be shared with all scientists. I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time reading it. Such information can be compromised. Okay, so that's really based on, when I read the first sentence, it kind of, what's your impression of that? Is only interested in an openly available scientific data. Now, see, my mind read that, and this is how your mind can play tricks on you, right? I read that as only interested basically in the today's scientific accepted means and methods, but that's not what it actually says, does it?
You want to go first, Alexei? Because I know what you're saying, artisan, and I interpret that my own way too.
Oh, I figured that meant that they were just going to be open and upfront with people.
No,
Yeah.
and see, now that I read it again, I'm wrong. So go ahead, Dave. But my first impression.
To me, when I read the first two sentences, they're only interested in openly available scientific data and a transparent analysis of it. Thus, government-owned info, which cannot be shared with all scientists, cannot be used. Such info would compromise the scope of our program. Okay. I gather here a much larger picture of whether the intent of these people doing this is good or bad. I'm not sure, but I gather the Galileo project, in a good way, is I don't want to use this word, but I can't think of anything else, a front, if you will, to utilize sources and methods to put together the open source data leading up to an event that will go, holy crap. Some form of, I don't want to say disclosure UFO landing on the White House lawn, but to me, I see this as something leading up to something larger.
I do know that they are, that may be one motive, but I do know that they're physically building equipment to do science with. So that kind of contradicts a little bit what you're saying, right? I think they are going to actually take measurements and, right, they're going to do science.
From my understanding, yeah. I think that,
what I thought
right.
you were implying was that they were just going to be some conduit for.
Oh, no.
Okay, I got you.
Sorry,
wrong,
what I'm trying to say is that basically what I'm gathering from this is, say, I don't know, 10 years ago, a bunch of guys from government, a bunch of guys from private industry who had access to this type of knowledge got together and said, we need to put together a long-term plan to slowly introduce this to the public. And one of those steps is not including classified data for a number of reasons. That's what I gather when I read that. I didn't mean
Yeah, no, I'm leaning more towards like that. And it's just a way to give people the science behind it without actually telling them everything that's going on.
Sure. And then there's the typical answer, well, we don't want to give source and methods, intelligence, yada, yada.
Number 2 is the one I meant to read. Good Lord. The analysis of the data will be based solely on known physics and will not entertain fringe ideas about extensions to the standard model of physics. That's the one I actually meant to read, not the first one. Because I was thinking about Alexei and people like Alexei when, like the Galileo project responds to certain people and they don't respond to others. And I think one of the reasons is because of this number 2.
Well, that's sad because they're called the Galileo project. I mean, Galileo literally got thrown in jail for his fringe idea at the time.
But see, that's my my point. That was really the point.
You get what I'm saying? Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Fringe in quotes. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Who's to say? I know what you're saying. All due respect, who's to say what is or is not fringe? Because we seem to be on the edge of a new paradigm. So, exactly. I see. I wonder if that is because they want to stick with what, for example, Hal implied, which is that general relativity could be tweaked instead of introducing a whole new thing to us, which they may have, but it's just, again, it would open the genie out of the bottle to pissing off too many people in politics and business. That's what I wonder.
That's what I was just thinking too, like the political aspect of it, and also the switching over of industry. It's almost like switching from gasoline to electric when it comes to like distribution and all that kind of stuff. Like they still need to make their money, so they still need their physics to be right. The physics that's taught in school, the physics in that, and so maybe just by tweaking it in this direction and saying this, it's easier transition.
I don't mean I think there's anything nefarious about this.
No.
You made me think of it when you were talking about, standard models and, how we perceive things and how, what we expect in this reality. And I think I broke this number 3 with my little work to protect the quality of its scientific research. The Galileo research team will not publicize the details of its internal discussions or share the specifications of its experimental hardware, Tony, or software before the work is finalized. And see, I didn't read any of this before I started working with it. Anyway, I don't want to get into too much of my experience with them, because I think they're great people.
Right.
I love Avi Loeb. I love all the guys that work there. But I wish they had just gone over these ground rules with me.
I'm gonna go out on a big limb here and just if I could just give my 2 cents of what I don't want to say believe, but what I consider. Also, sorry, Angry Drunken German made a couple points. All new science is fringe. Without the fringe, there's no new discovery. And I guess you'd have to look at who's funding it to decide on intent. Right.
Well, without fringe, everyone's a lab technician.
Right. That's exactly.
They're not actually doing science or learning anything new. They're just following the standard norm and getting the A on the test.
Right.
I really think it's like when I was in 7th grade in my drafting class. The drafting teacher wanted us to all have this same. It was a German-made Dietz. Is it Dietz? We'll look it up. German-made. I think it is a drafting set that had all the exact pieces in it, the same pencil, the same lead, everything. The tools were exactly the same for each student. And my impression is when I read that they're just wanting to they want to use the same tools that other scientists are using, so that they can all be on the same wavelength, so that when they're doing I don't know. That's my impression. I don't know.
Well, I hear that, and it's hard to get. I didn't mean to say that in a bad way. The lab technician kind of thing. It might have come across as bad, I guess. But
no, not to me.
I know when I'm studying school, if I didn't show my math the way that the teacher wanted me to show my math, I wouldn't get an A. And so if you don't present your work and stuff like that in the proper methods, you're not even going to be accepted. And so things like that hinder a lot of progress. That's more what I was getting at. Yeah.
I think what we're talking about is the spirit of the motivation. The spirit should be to find the fringe in I don't know what would be in a nuts and bolts way. Find the fringe, but do it in a way that everybody understands or can verify it or test it.
I'll go out on a limb here and say I have nothing to back this up, but what I gather from point 1, 2, and 3 as an interpretation is that if, again, and this is a big if for my audience and for Tony's audience as well, if I was giving the Galileo project the benefit of the doubt, all good-willed, good-intentioned individuals, for the sake of this example, if I was a group of good-willed individuals from government, private industry, science, you name it, that wanted to bring this stuff out, but there were multiple control mechanisms, and when I say control mechanisms, I mean pissed off people that may actually go as far as to murder you if you try and put this out. I look at the Galileo project as a handful of individuals backed by, again, I know this might sound woo, a benevolent, potentially ET faction that is trying to do this in a way that doesn't step on toes and colors within the lines metaphorically, if that makes sense. That's what I gather-ish. But I got nothing to go off that. That's my intuition.
Well, I think at the end of the day, they're going to end up saying stuff that your neighbors... literally my neighbor might have said to me, and at one point people were like, oh, that doesn't make any sense. They're going to end up saying something that's so profound that it's almost fantastic and hard to believe. And so that's where it comes to disclosure, and it just comes to the way people are trained and the way they think. They need the suit and tie to tell them what to think. Unfortunately, I'm not saying that's the way it is, but so when you have Harvard University or one of the most prestigious universities saying, well, this is actually true, it's more true to people because of who said it.
Right.
Yep.
Which reminds me of something an old friend said to me. I asked him about a year ago. I go, when do you think disclosure is coming? This was still when I thought, White House, UFO lands on the lawn of the White House, whatever, right? And
who needs to tell you? Yeah,
right. And he's no, of course. And he said to me, he goes, Dave, he's like, and again, this is just his opinion. He goes, I believe disclosure is already there for those who look. So again, take that as you will. I'm not saying that it just made me think,
Well, it goes back to the line of sight, even in how we're all born into different cultures. And it's hard to see a bigger picture if you're stuck into a belief system. And so as you remove certain IMs or what you think you are and how you define yourself, you literally see a bigger and bigger picture of reality. And so that's when you naturally see that these things, hey, well, we actually live in a bigger realm. You know,
Right.
there's more to reality than just going to work and getting some cash and then coming home. We live in this huge universe. Like,
Right. That's no. Exactly. That's the sort of the train of thought that I'm going on. It seems to me that, yeah, these individuals, like the ones part of the Galileo project, are trying to color within the lines while still turning a page in history.
Right. They still have to swim
Yeah.
within that university standard,
The
you know.
politically,
Yeah.
scientifically, financially, sadly, I think militarily as well. I
Yep.
think as well. Yeah.
Well,
But I
also the
think
fact that they're so public. Go ahead. Sorry, Tony. Yeah.
no, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just
Uh,
a thought came to me that at least their stated goal is outside, right? They may be using standard means and methods, but their goal is clearly outside. You know, their goal is on the fringe,
Mm.
right? So
yeah.
I
The
think
fact that
that
they've set it up is a huge step. It's almost as big as landing on the moon for mankind. Like, you have Harvard looking into it now. It's a big
Right.
step.
This
Yeah.
is, and it's like when James Fox and Jacques Vallée went on Joe Rogan at this point. I think it was almost 2 years ago, which was they kept saying throughout that entire podcast, and I respect the crap out of those guys. They kept saying, "Well, we got to be careful because Stanford may not be comfortable with us saying this right now." Like they blatantly said it, like this may be too progressive for Stanford's liking. So to add to your point, Alexei, right?
Yeah.
It's that alleged control infrastructure that
Well, and that's who decides what's acceptable and what is the A, what is the
right,
standard being taught, you know,
right,
what methods and procedures, like in medicine, when it comes to heart transplants. You know, my dad worked with another guy, Christian Barnard in South Africa, and they had to develop heart transplants, right? So it
right.
was like at first heart transplant wasn't approved in hospitals or to be taught in universities, but over time, heart transplants did become approved and they were taught in universities.
Mm.
Um, so certain procedures already exist that aren't taught, and it's the same trickle down of information with physics and um,
And
yeah.
all
So it
of
has to be
yeah,
agreed upon by the universe, you know, the institution, educational institutions, to be a real
yes.
thing. Yeah.
That's see I know I think you know Alexi where I'm going to go with this, but that's that whole who again, and I don't claim to have the answer, but who is to decide who and who is not the arbiter of truth, you know?
Well, and
Of
what's being taught and what's not. I get frustrated when I know that electrogravitics wasn't taught in college to me. And like
okay.
that was physics that was originally created in 1908, but
Right.
it's controlling gravity with electricity, basically.
the problem
Right.
is there is no
Yeah.
truth per se,
Mm.
right? I mean, the truth is the most subjective thing in the universe.
Yep.
That's another thing too. When I went on Thomas Fessler's Disclosure Tonight, great guys there, and they asked me, you know, my thoughts on, you know, what happened, what allegedly may have happened with the ETs from, you know, World War II and up to now, and Rob Heatherly, great guy, much respect for him. He says to me, Dave, I love your line of thinking, but I don't want you to go down one of those rabbit holes where you're just going down that one path, because what you said, Tony, which was everyone's perspective is different. It's literally again, you may know I think Alex, you know the science behind this maybe better than myself. Who's to say, for example, that, you know, you grew up at a certain point in time from, you know, day 1 to day 10, Alexi, but what the events that you experienced I may not have. Again, this could be that Mandela effect, as they call it. Like, what do you mean that thing was on the news on this day and time 10 years ago, Alexi? It was for you, but not for me,
That
right?
one's
Like,
always fun.
yeah, yeah,
No, I think about it a lot too. And like, so there are diverging timelines are definitely a thing when it comes to physics and quantum physics and the multiverse, right? Diverging timelines.
right.
But I do think there are also converging timelines potentially.
Converging,
Um,
right.
yeah, if there's diverging timelines, they would also converge. And so, like, you know, I like a wave. So diverging, converging, diverging, converging.
Would that also be the same? Sorry to interrupt you, but would that be the same as, like, say, us three are sky watching for UFOs, let's say, and a craft shows up. I see a disc. You, Alexei, see a triangle. Tony, you see, let's just say, a cube. But when it moves, it's all moving in the same way. And when we talk about it after, we go, "What the hell? You saw a square. I saw a triangle." Is that the same science, Alexei, or no?
It's hard to describe, but we all basically have our own perception. And like the overlapping
I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
It's hard to describe. I'm trying to think of the best way to do it. So imagine it's only me and you and the Earth, and we're both on complete opposite sides of the Earth. And we're looking at something that's 2 feet away, like less than half a second away. So like the light wouldn't reach you. What I'm trying to say is
no, I'm following. I think I'm following.
It's so hard to describe. Basically, based off of your energy that you're putting out and your perception and the way you're flying through space, you might literally experience a completely different field of energy. And so when it comes to a multiverse of experiences, there's different experiences happening all over the planet. I'm not saying that there's not like one giant consensus past, because there is definitely a past that ties us all together. But I believe that there can also be converging timelines as well. It's hard to describe. I think there's as paths converge, I think they can also, as paths diverge, they can also converge.
Does this have anything to do with light by chance?
Yeah, it has to do with just the natural wave nature of pacing around a 0 point. And so I basically have been able to tie it into an interdimensional alignment that happens like every 2,178 years, to where there's like, we get tugged outwards when all the energies start to align, and that would create a diverging moment of timelines. But then as that energy essentially settles back into its pool, it would be a converging of all timelines. So like, imagine if there was water in this cup, and as the syzygy effect happens, it's like throwing pebbles in here and splashing all the water.
Right.
And when it comes to individuals having experiences, they're all going to be experiencing different ripples and tides. But then as that fluid settles, it'll continue forward as a 0 point of a converged timeline. So it's like there's diverging lines, but also converging timelines.
So in between, in the process of all of that, there's some discrepancies, if you want to call it.
Yeah, a great synchronization of all of our little choices that are very close to being the same.
You know what? They were all in a great mug. That's for sure.
The artisan mug.
They were all in one awesome mug.
Yeah. But I write about that a little bit in the Physics of Love. I call that a converging and diverging timelines based off of dimensional alignments. Because we have a 0 point, our natural orbit around time. But when you have an alignment of any sort, it pulls you offline, and then you kind of pace back on your 0. So like you would be in a converged timeline, and then there would be a divergence, and then it would go back to a convergence, just based off of orbits and energy. Like even if you consider our system, you have Earth going around the sun, and every now and then Jupiter's at its closest point. It'll pull Earth closer to Jupiter, but then as Jupiter goes back towards the sun, the Earth kind of paces back and forth just a little bit along its regular orbit.
So So you're saying basically, why would that not be applicable to us?
2-dimensional levels as well, right? Yeah.
Man, are you free in the next couple of days, Alexei? I'd love to have you on the show, like I had Tony on.
Yeah, we'll definitely be able to figure that out. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah, you all can talk about that stuff for hours. I'll be finishing at my Love Shack. So
I've got diagrams on all that. Yeah.
That's one delusion I want to remove from my reality. I'm just kidding. I was sitting here thinking, you know what I was thinking while you all were talking, and I don't know a word you said, but I was like, you know what I want to do? The Bernstein Bears is one delusion I want to remove from my reality. When you were talking about the Mandela effect, when you were talking about the Mandela effect, I was like, oh my God, people have, talking about delusions. And I know that people are going to take that wrong, but I think we need to concentrate on for me, the past is one big delusion.
There's only now.
Yeah, that's my thing.
Now affects the past.
We spend hours on the internet worrying about what happened in the past. Let it go, push it away. If you think it's there, push it away.
Right.
You know, but I don't mean that to be critical of anything. I just think that we tend to get caught up in those mental. And I remember the first time I met Alexei. He kind of it was kind of what's the word? It was I was freed. I was trying to come up with a way in my mind to allow myself to remove some delusions, right? And when I read his book, and I realized that all of our thoughts and everything that we have created, all of the memories that we've created in the past. Now, this is for me, right? Those are delusions, and in a funny way and in a real way, and they should be removed from your life, you know. And so I don't know, in the past 30, 40 years, I've been trying to remove like political delusions, religious delusions, food delusions,
Right.
anything. The way I've lost 50 pounds this year was removing the delusion that I was creating with the habits that I had formed.
Well, yeah, no, it's challenging. I mean, if you
Very
ever
well
want to
said.
actually have,
Yeah.
if you ever want like world peace, right? I want world peace. I mean, that's kind of like what my company's been about since I was a kid. It's like what I'm trying to do. And the past, holding on to the past is really like the root of all war and anxiety about the future. So it's like holding on to the past and worrying about the future. And it's like
depression.
people, right? Well, I mean, past brings in depression, totally, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, and future brings in creativity, but also anxiety if you're thinking too far into the future. So it's like the thing is, we kind of need to let go of the past. We need to let go of whatever future may exist but doesn't exist, right? And realize we have now, and we move forward. Like,
yeah,
right.
How are you going to treat your fellow humans now?
Right. Like,
today?
remove all the stuff you've taught. Like, you know, I remember growing up, like you would hear about people from another country being different. And it's like at the end of the day, no, we're all the same. You know, there's no real difference between anyone except they were born in a different spiral of man-made creation.
They talk funny, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, that goes back to perception, to who talk funny to me, to you, to, you know, again.
Totally.
Right.
That was humor.
Yeah. Oh, I know, Tony. You said that, by the way, very perfectly said when you talked about habits and all that, like letting go of things. Couldn't have said it better myself, man. 100%.
So that's something I've always been challenged with. And like the one I have now is like Coca-Cola. I got to get rid of that. And then coffee. Coffee's like one of my bad ones.
We're not giving it. Coffee's not bad. Coffee's not bad.
It's a spiral, man. It's a
black
spiral.
coffee. Black coffee's not. If you put too much sugar in it, that's bad. That's a delusion. But
it's like
regular
a couple hours.
Cool.
You know, it's a good spiral. The coffee one.
By the way, I get to decide what delusions get to stay and which ones go.
Nice. Greg O'Brien in the chat, he says, how can there be a now, because now just passed? As soon as you think of now, it's already gone.
There's only now, and now consists of past and future. It's the great now. The now that it contains it all. The entire 5D vortex of time that has all of past and all of future.
Sort of like if you think of a sheet of paper and all four corners folding into the center.
I like to just draw it as like a big vortex, just like a
right.
A big spiral, like almost like a big galaxy of all time.
Like a toroid field or
pretty
a spiral?
Much.
Right.
I haven't gone to the toroid yet. It might be where it ends up heading, but that's not where I'm at.
Cool.
I'm in I have a drawing I can bring up real quick. I think that's
sure.
I like it. Let me.
Elena said our visual perception is processed after it has already happened, so we see into the past. Interesting. Yeah, Greg, the word vortex. Yeah, that's quite common all over the place now, whether in academia or the quote unquote fringe angles of things, for sure. Yeah.
Let's see if I can get this. But so basically, I mean, this is the easiest way to describe. Because we have a consciousness.
I got you.
And this is based on our tuning, like delta through fast gamma are the size of the rings. And then this is our spiral of perception, meaning where we can actually perceive matter. And then we have inner energies of experience and outer energies of experience. And the inner energies and outer energies add to create a field of energy. And then we have the tuning of our consciousness, and that's what we perceive. And so there's denser realms and less dense realms. It's definitely the easiest way to put it.
Right. I like that a lot. It reminds me of the something called the zone of proximal development, where apparently that's also what the phenomenon is trying to do. The alleged benevolent species are trying to do with us or for us, where basically if you think of 3 rings, and the center one is all the things that we can do, and then the middle one is the stuff that we could do but we need help, and then the outer ring is the stuff we absolutely cannot do. The phenomenon seems to enter in the part of the middle ring. We can do certain things, but we need help. Sort of like how Jacques Vallée says, the phenomenon seems to deliberately insert itself into people's lives in an experience to the point where people know they're not crazy, but they can't identify it with, you know what I'm saying, traditionally, the way
I
one
would call
would.
that, yeah, no, I have my experiences or whatever, and basically I've always seen it as like a meeting halfway.
There you go. Yep.
It's meeting halfway between where we are and where we can be. And
Right.
like whenever you're teaching someone like anything, like even like martial arts or punches or kicks, you always kind of meet someone halfway in the conversation of understanding, right?
Yes,
So like that's
exactly.
kind of, I could see that. Like that's what I call meeting halfway, like straight
Bringing
up.
bringing the horse to water, and then exactly.
Yeah, right. It has to drink on its own. And so that's like what you were saying
Right.
earlier about disclosure. It's already there if you're willing to look for it. Yeah.
The only thing that I don't like about that is that I can't interact with any of these alleged species, whether telepathically or whatnot. That's the number one thing I'd love to, I guess you could say, experience.
I think you can, right?
I think when Lou said that, he was trying to give people, I think he meant in the spirit. Like, to me, disclosure is physical. I want some physical evidence, right? And see, Lou has the advantage that he's probably seen things, right? So he's like, yeah, we're telling you, it's, you know, it's happened.
You want like a gray or a craft or something, right?
I just want some evidence. You know, I want some tangible. I want something. You know, I want to see what he has seen. What's wrong with that?
Right.
That's not selfish.
They definitely talk about a lot of radar data and things like that. And then the Skinwalker Ranch show, I think I don't know if there's actually much on there, right? You were saying like they don't really ever show anything.
I've never seen actually anything come out of Skinwalker Ranch. I mean, literally, I haven't seen anything. Know. And maybe I just don't know where to look. I don't
see. This is what takes me to like when Dr. Eric Davis claimed that when you have he claimed, at least if I'm not mistaken, that whenever there's a UFO occurrence, there's poltergeist activity that follows afterwards. Dr. Eric Davis had said this in an interview in the last couple of years, if I'm not mistaken. And I found that interesting because, again, people who have UFO experiences, again, to say, because a lot of people sort of went, what? I've experienced the UFO interaction and no poltergeist activity afterwards. Again, not saying Mr. Davis is correct or incorrect, but who's to say that poltergeist activity didn't occur to someone you know, someone you're related to? Maybe, again, potentially with physics being able to back that in some sense. But
yeah, no, I think it's super interesting because it relates the densities of experience all together.
That is, I love that relates the densities of experience. That's
because all those would be coming from the denser realm.
Like, right.
Yeah, which is like where our consciousness starts to go after, like, as we're passing, like the 80 harmonics in the brain. So like that's a denser electromagnetic density of experience. So closer to the center of time.
Got you.
So that's like a denser realm. That's how I've like been able to associate it really easy and simply for myself, you know.
Do you think in your perspective, Alexei, when you say denser, do you view that as closer to the source, if you will, and being able to see things within the electromagnetic spectrum, or you see that as the other way around and going lighter is that way?
The denser realms are closer to the center.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And I see that as it doesn't really relate so much to our perception. I don't know.
Right.
Sorry, I was distracted by that.
I'm sorry. Yeah,
No.
I should have put that up there, but I was. I was looking at this comment too. I didn't mean to interrupt you guys.
No.
Did y'all need to finish a thought?
No, I'm done.
I was just going to say, because we were talking about Skinwalker Ranch, and one thing that bugs me is how we latch on to. It's like we latch on to terms that have been created, like hitchhikers. We latched onto that, so everybody's talking about hitchhikers now. But there's no. I mean, and I'm curious. I want to know has anybody actually know? Does anybody know where you can actually go to see? The evidence that's supposed. I mean, I was watching an interview one time with Brandon. What's his name? Fugel. What's his last name?
Brandon Fugel, I think.
Fugel, yeah. And he was in a control room, and there were all these cameras that had been set up around the ranch, right? I mean, it's like 24-hour surveillance. So there should be mounds of evidence. There should be, if you've got CCTV, if you've got cameras running 24 hours a day, there should be mounds and mounds of evidence. And the feeling, the vibe that I get is that some of the evidence is being hoarded for future programs, paid programs.
That's my take too. Either that or yeah.
So when people in the past have gotten mad at me for questioning Skinwalker, and I'm like, I'm just asking.
Well, I think for the amount of years people have been doing research, including the Pentagon, there's definitely something happening.
But
that's all I can say.
Where can you go to see the evidence of it, though?
Well, didn't the Pentagon spend 15 years there, or at least 5 years? I forget how long they were there.
I know, but where is it? I'm just asking a simple question.
I can't even. I wish I could. I'm not going to pretend to defend nor go against the government in this particular case. It could be that it was so damning, so to speak, they classified it right away. It could be that there was nothing there, and the ones investigating it. I'm just making a joke here.
I think it has a lot to do with the greater picture, like you just said. It's so compelling that it starts to bring in questions such as religion.
Well, this is my sort of thought process right now, currently, which is that if the phenomenon speaks to a much larger picture of things, if it's that much of a holy crap moment for us, again, then there's the thing where I very limitedly, to an extent, understand why some humans may be hiding it over others, ergo the government hiding it over us. Now, with that being said, though, to play devil's advocate, if I could say very quickly, the question becomes, who are they to hide that from us? That's another big, debate.
One thing I'm tired of, honestly, is this excuse of using religion. I was raised in the church. I'm practically raised in the church. Okay. I have no problem. I believe the creator created everything, even aliens, their little UAP ships flying around, all that, right? So this thing of, well, we don't want to disrupt society because of religion. No, we believe that God created everything, not just.
It's a great point, Tony. Absolutely.
So I think that's just some excuse to not have exposure in the first place, because everybody that I talk to privately, who's a Christian or a Hindu or a Muslim, they're not like, oh my God,
right? No,
UAPs,
yeah.
I don't know anybody that's that way. I
think it actually ties it all together very nicely. To be honest with you,
I agree. Pope John Paul II, his top exorcist in the mid-90s, went on an Italian TV show, and think of exorcism as you will. And he said, the interviewer said to the exorcist, I forgot his name, this is a guy who spent countless hours on the right-hand man of Pope John Paul II and doing all the exorcisms, believe that or not, up to you guys. And the interviewer said, are aliens, demons, fairies, all that stuff, is it real? He goes, yeah. He said, it's seriously real. And then the whole thing, dragons, demons, what have you. And then the interviewer said, do we need to, is it time to change our perspective on, religion and all of that? And he goes, absolutely not at all. He goes, there's a place for it. So
I used to kid with my kids when they were little, I'd say Jesus is coming back in a spaceship. Be ready.
I'll be right back. 1 minute.
Sure. That's a great way to put it, Tony.
And there's nothing wrong with I believe that Jesus was a historical character. I believe that he was crucified by the Romans. So there's a way to not deny history,
Right.
and still that doesn't mean that I'm going to try to go out and convert people to Christianity. Right?
Right.
Everybody has that fear too, that Christians are somehow out to convert. That's another baseless fear. You can run into charismatic. They're charismatic. They're fundamentalist in every religion, right? We've seen evidence
Right.
of that.
Extremists all over the place.
Extremists. Yeah. Thank you. I was trying to think of the word. Kept wanting to say fundamentalist, but I don't know where I was going with that. But
you said Jesus is coming back on a spaceship.
Where religion fits into this, yeah.
Oh well, like that's what's so wild about the book, The Physics of Love. It basically talks about those interdimensional alignments and how you can have like dipping of seed crystals into our realm from the outer realms. Because if you have outer realms of experience, they need to harmonize before the inner realms can even harmonize. So you could say our creation comes from the wants, don't wants, assumptions, and expectations of an outer realm.
Right.
We now have ours, and our energy creates denser realms. But those energies are all orbiting the center of time, and there are alignments that happen, just like the alignments of planets around our sun. There's alignments of, you could say, universes or dimensional energies. And so during those great alignments of orbiting universes is when you could potentially have the dipping of seed crystals and reincarnated beings coming back on specific time cycles. And so that relates to actually the last time cycle was when Jesus came, right? The age of the Pisces. And now we have the age of Aquarius coming into play. So the dipping of a seed crystal potentially could be coming. And so that's where everything, it ties back in very nicely into religion. And so when you talk about vortices and I forget which book it is in the stories, but they were talking about like the beings came from different vortices and whatnot.
Sure.
You have vortices that make bigger realms tighter, and you also have vortices that go from tighter to bigger. And so if you're going from bigger to tighter, that's us experiencing a lower realm. So like you could say more of the heavenly side. And when you have a point getting bigger, that would be experiencing a denser realm, more of the afterlife side.
Alexei, brother, you nailed. Like I've been saying that on my show as well for months now. You nailed that. I mean, it also reminds me of fractals and concentric circles. It's the same, and cymatics. It's the same concept.
Yeah, so I think it all really does tie back nicely together and help us understand like a bigger picture of reality.
Right.
I mean, that's where I'm at with it. Yeah.
And it speaks to perspective. If one wants to again define, it's like calling, if I have a dog named Harley, but maybe Alexei, you want to call him Frankie or something. Doesn't make him any different. He's still the dog, right?
It's still the same thing,
right?
Or energy or object,
right?
Yeah. I'm not trying to call the dog a thing or whatever.
No, but it's just for
1 second. Sorry.
Sure.
I'm with you.
He's I like him a lot. He's really cool.
Yeah. You can see.
All right, back.
So angry drunken German. Just my opinion, Tony.
I got to get more coffee.
What people don't understand about me is that I don't really take things as arguments. He said not being argumentative, and I was trying to find out what he was talking about because I don't take his statements as argumentative.
If I could mention super quick, one thing I didn't want to leave out was that, to be fair, although I do fully agree with you guys on how religion could and probably will and would have a place in the phenomenon, disclosure, and all that stuff, I also want to say respectfully to your audience, even to mine, we have to be vigilant of making sure we don't check off confirmation biases by just plucking facts from places and putting it somewhere just to fill your own belief system.
That's the problem when facts are like the truth. They're subjective, and you have to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
That I've had people fuss at me in my previous videos for not being a good Christian, right? Well, what does that mean? What is being a good Christian? Does that mean I agree with what you think the Bible says?
For me, I mean, I came to that conclusion from a very, very, you could say, primitive state. And I literally go step by step from us evolving on Earth to that the dimensions of experience and all of that stuff, from just logically thinking about the universe. Like if you just sit quiet and you logically think about everything, you'll come to that. Not you, but like that's the conclusion I came to. I'm
Right.
just speaking generally. So I think a lot of people will end up coming to that same conclusion, and it's almost like knowledge that we already have inherently within us.
Right. Wasn't it at
Yeah.
one point considered crazy many hundreds of years ago to say that, to propose that certain non-human beings didn't exist because it would then imply that God was not all knowing and all creating?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it became only Earth, and then it, like you just
Right.
said, yeah.
Yeah. And then something flipped, I think, in the last few hundred years or 500, something like that. But I'm not an expert on that, so I won't talk about that.
Yeah, no, and I haven't studied enough. You could say religions or whatever, but I've definitely heard that what I say relates a lot to like the Kabbalah in a way, as far as like realms, and then also the law of one when it comes to like Egyptian stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, so it all seems to relate.
It all seems to relate. Again, the fact that
Yeah.
all religions talk about a flood story roughly 13,000 years ago. Again, that whole, Agartha, Inner Earth, all that stuff. Absolutely. I actually, quick little note, when I started my show, I sort of told myself a year and a half ago, I'm not going to delve into the long-term history of stuff because I don't know where to start. It just seems so confusing. But then as you piece it together slowly but surely, it's like what you just said. There's something. It's almost as if, I'm not trying to make assumptions, but something or someone taught us something. The zodiac wheel, Aquarius, Pisces, plant in this era, plant in that time of the year for food and all that stuff. Almost as if something or someone gave us a guidance of sorts. The question then becomes, was that guidance faltered by us or by them, or that's another thing.
Well, and that's where it's like this gets kind of woo, but not really. I mean, like the dimensional alignments and the reincarnations, and like
Right.
being able to transfer energy from a past life to a future life. And when you align yourself to your golden spot, you actually start to remember a lot more information that you already have access to, but like kind of already let go of.
Right.
Here, this is funny too, right? When I read these articles, which I love to do, I always think of the inner Earth people. And
I have a confirmation bias about this stuff, but I see preparation.
Oh yeah, I mean, this stuff is definitely like based off a theory. No one's been to the inside of the Earth, and
right. I guess what I'm saying, that what my point was what I was trying to earlier. We thought the Earth had a liquid iron core, right? And that's what created the spinning of that created the electromagnetic field, right? Well, now they're saying, oh, wait, there's some other substance at the Earth's core we don't know about.
Well, one thing that always gets me is like at the dead center of the Earth, the force of gravity is zero. Like it's all canceled from all the different directions. And so if you're like 10 foot off center, the force of gravity is only like 10 feet of mass not being canceled. So like as you go outward from center, the gravity gets bigger. It's kind of, I don't know, if you actually draw diagrams, force diagrams of the force of gravity based off of the surrounding mass, you'll see that like the force of gravity at the center of the Earth is zero.
You see, Greg, I fully agree.
Like some of those drawings just don't make any sense.
Yeah, that mass would have a radius, right?
Well, the force of gravity is
the mass, yeah.
So you're canceled on all sides.
You can't go to the very center of the mass because then you're looking at a point. So that one point of that one atom at the point doesn't have as much mass.
So move over 5 inches.
Yeah.
If you move over 5 inches,
well, it would be based on the size of the core.
It's still very little.
Yeah.
You guys, by chance, I was just trying to pull it up in my files. I got to see if I have it still. Have you guys seen the alleged map of the Nazis' instructions how to get to Inner Earth? They called it New Schwabenland.
I have not seen that.
Okay, check that out. Sure. Now, there's an alleged map, and again, I'm not saying it's real, hence why I say alleged. If I wasn't there myself, I will not say it's real. But interesting, in those instructions, it says compasses, all that stuff, will totally stop working, just ignore it, and polarities will change, but ignore that as well. And it's the same. Yeah. Sorry, Tony. It's the same intro. The same instructions and depiction used. I know this is going to sound funny in the Godzilla versus King Kong movie as how they got into Inner Earth. I don't know.
Well, from my understanding of inner and outer Earth, I talk about it a little bit in one of my videos. It's those densities of experience, right? And so at magnetic vortices, where like energy is coming inward, you could potentially harmonize your consciousness to the next layer of experience. So it's more of like a portal or a tunnel into inner and outer Earth versus like an actual physical thing you walk. But I don't know, right? That's just my understanding of dimensions. Like,
No, that's a great, yeah.
This is going to be one where I have to, be obvious and say I'm going to go with the understood science on this one. But anyway, I don't want to, party. I don't want to pee in your cornflakes or anything. So.
No, I love it. Tony, if you want to shut me down, man, I love it.
No, I just want there to be one. I want there to be a different opinion here than which I don't know. I think based on relativity, based on the science of Einstein, that there has to be mass at the core of our planet, some kind of mass to have the effect on the surrounding space-time that we are having that creates the effect of gravity.
Right, but what I was saying is that like inner Earth would be perceived, if we wanted to perceive inner Earth right now, we would have to change our conscious harmonics. But like if you go to the North Pole or somewhere on the planet where there's magnetic vortices that create funnels, it could already properly harmonize your consciousness to inner Earth and outer Earth. So it's not like it's a physical tunnel within our 4-dimension, but it's a tunnel, it's a portal through consciousness.
Which begs the question, do you subscribe to a pocket dimension, if you will, which is that it's larger on the inside than what's viewed perceptively on the outside?
If we were in inner Earth, our harmonics would be like at maybe 80 hertz or 160 hertz. And so at that point, our perception of Earth gets bigger.
Got you, right.
Because we've shrunken down, essentially.
Right. And there have been also experiencers who have claimed they're walking into, say, a 50 feet in diameter craft, roughly, and they walk in and it's 20,000 square feet based on their... Yeah,
no, it totally relates to that because it's your perception of the object.
Right, it's the perception. So it's not... Okay, so does that... The question then becomes, for me at least, does that mean See, this is when it gets tough. Does it mean it's actually physical or not? That's the...
Well, physical. That's why I always say
physical.
Physical is relative to our experience.
Right.
Yeah. So at a different like thickness of energy, you have a different matter and light ratio.
Yeah. To me, physicality and perspective are just your perception about the physical. Right. Your perception is just that. It's just your perception.
Well, right. So it circles back to like using different cameras to take photos of the quantum state. So like it's all relative to the perception of that object.
To the tool you're using.
It doesn't mean if there were 3 abductees in the same UFO, the same that they might not all have different perspectives, perceptions of the same physical craft, right?
Right.
Well,
I mean, you get that in everyday life. I get that. I mean, that's why a physical relationship. That's why eyewitnesses, right? Isn't there something in court? Eyewitnesses are always have different testimonies.
Yep. Right. So each bit of matter, each element could be considered a different consciousness in a way because they all react differently to different matters and different energies. And so that's what I was getting at.
Right.
It ties back into that. Basically, it's all relative to experience. And so depending on what is inside of it is the size that it will experience.
Wow.
Wow. Alexei knows I'm a physical guy, so he has to correct me on the...
Oh man, I just wanted to say, guys, in the next couple minutes, I probably have to get going, but I cannot thank you enough.
We've gone 2 hours, haven't we?
Yeah. Yep. Wow. And I also want to promise you, Tony, I will not go live again until you give me permission next time. Sorry about that.
That's okay. We just might have something top secret we might want to talk about.
Right. Exactly.
You guys have 5 minutes to hang out after we stop going live?
Yeah.
I do. Cool. I've got that's how much. Yeah, I've got that much time. Yeah, for you, sure. Alexei, I've got 5 minutes.
Did you guys want to, Alexei and Tony, did you guys want to tell my audience on my end who's watching live now where and how they can find you guys, if that's cool? And then I'll end it on my end.
Tony, you want to go first, or?
Well, you can find me here Artist and Tony channel. I don't know, put out about 2 or 3 videos a week, and they vary. You might see a design build a video one day. You might see us out building the Love Shack the next day, and then you might see us talking about woo on another day, which I love to do. And I'm also a poet.
Awesome.
Nice.
Anyway.
Yeah, I've got my work at luciuslabs.com. That's where I have all my books. And then on YouTube, I have Alexei Novitzky. I put together like 10, 15-minute long videos to try and explain this stuff a little bit more comprehensively and focused,
Yeah,
So I've got some decent videos there.
Lou promised me a book, a signed book, and I'm also going to give away. I'm going to give away a Lou book and a Alexei book. When Lou's book comes out, I've got 2 of Alexei's books on order.
They'll come in soon.
I keep giving my copy away to people, so I'm going to keep one finally, and then show them your book, Alexei.
Yes,
Bang.
please.
So this is the infinite pool of experience and awareness, and it will literally take you from modern accepted physics to understanding the layers of conscious types that exist within time. And there's a lot of information here. It's basically come from extremely powerful visions in combination with astrophysics and whatnot.
I would love to read that 100%. We'll chat more when we go off air. So I want to say thank you so much to Tony's audience and all that, and to the audience on my end. Thank you so much, guys, and we will see all of you tomorrow morning for a Kraken. Thanks, guys.
Okay.
And I'm all right.
Tony, you have to end the live.
See how much confusion you create, Dave. Now we have to end another one now.
Oh, so
you could just end yours and we're good.
Okay, I'm just kidding. I do want to say thank you, Dave, before I sign off. Thanks for coming. I think you're a very interesting fellow, and
thank you.
I have this playlist called Pi-Fi. It's people I find interesting, and you're in there. So,
thanks, man. That means a lot to me. I've been watching your stuff, by the way, for months before you hopped into Thomas's show that night, and I was like, Tony.
So you already knew I was just some crazy carpenter guy, not a physicist. I'm trying to learn things from Alexei and Avi and you and other people. But it's funny because when you've been in my industry where everything's so concrete, that's not even a pun. You have a hard time breaking out of that, and that's
sure.
That's spending the last 20 years, 30 years trying to break out of that mold. But anyway, thanks to the audience for watching, and we will see you again soon.